Moving on to item 3.1. Mr. Brown?
Mayor, in follow-up to actions you took, you have the two items before you. One is a second reading of the ordinance pertaining to our zoning regulations and medical marijuana distribution facilities. The other would be a second reading. It is the second reading of the ordinance related to the zoning. We'd also have a first reading of the ordinance related to your business licenses, and that's as a result of the change that council wished to make in terms of the minimum or the maximum number of people, where we had it anything would be 2 or more not allowed. You made it 4 or more, and there were associated changes in that ordinance. So we have a first reading in effect on the business license and a second reading on the zoning matters. We could go over more of the details if you'd like.
Do we have any initial questions? I have a few speaker slips again on this item for staff, for my colleagues at the moment. Not seeing any. Start with public speaker slips. Mike Dennison. He just went to the restroom. Brianna Bilbray.
Okay. I really hate public speaking. I'm like family members. I'm not a good politician or good at public speaking. All right, my name's Brianna Bilbray. I'm 24, a recent graduate at the University of San Diego. Got my degree in accounting. Work with a CPA, and I'm trying to get my CPA certificate, hopefully. In January 12th, in fact, I got diagnosed with melanoma. Came to find a very deep melanoma. I come to find out that I'm stage 3 out of 4, got into my lymph nodes. I had to have many surgeries, multiple, I think like 4 or 5. And then I started chemo about 3 months ago. I have my last one, hopefully tomorrow. I've been on and off paying attention to what's going on, but I read in an article a quote from Mr. Spriggs saying that chemo patients don't have to go that far to get the medicine that they would need. Reading that comment, I can tell, excuse me. I'm sorry. Reading that comment, I can tell Mr. Spriggs really doesn't understand how terrible chemo makes you feel. The words nausea and fatigue are really pretty words for what they actually mean. Fatigue, tired is an understatement from what you feel. Mr. Spriggs, you feel like you just want to die. I didn't even want to breathe. I was so tired. You don't want to get in a car and have to drive across the county to get the medicine to make you feel better. Nausea, I have about $200 worth of these nausea pills. They're the best of the best. You can call they're Zofran, Amend. I don't know how to say the C word one, but they aren't worth a lick. They don't do anything. And 1 dose of medicinal marijuana will make me fine for the entire day. Anyway, you have no idea. It's like the difference between night and day for chemo patients. I guess what I'm ultimately trying to say is you need to realize what you're doing. By banning dispensaries, you are not punishing the kids who find a way to get their hands on the medical cards. They can drive across the county to find what they want, if not get it from the drug cartels here in town. You're punishing us, the ones who need it. Not only are you infringing on my right as a California resident to obtain the medicine that I need, but you're punishing me by making it more difficult to get the one thing to relieve me from one of the worst feelings imaginable. I just want you all to keep this in mind if and when you vote again. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Dennison, is he returned? In that case, Marcus Boyd. And you have time donated by Tracy Rivera.
Thank you for having the courage to come out, Ms. Bilbray. Ms. Bilbray's talk moved me because I had, unfortunately, 4 cancer patients come to my office since your vote, and they all made me cry at my desk. Good evening, council members, Mr. Mayor, city staff. My name is Marcus Boyd, 1233 Palm Avenue. I own and operate a successful business here in Imperial Beach, and I am the vice chair of the San Diego chapter of Americans for Safe Access, the nation's largest medical cannabis patients' rights advocacy group, which holds monthly meetings right here in Imperial Beach at my office. Tonight, I am here to share with you my sincere disappointment with the perversion of the political process which I have witnessed over the last 2 years on this issue. Rather than upholding the will of the voters and protecting the most vulnerable in your community, those who are injured, sick, and dying, you have chose to ignore their pleas and have trampled all over their rights. Cancer patients on life support systems should not have to submit themselves to the ridicule and intimidation that they were the brunt of at the last council meeting. At the last meeting, this council based their decision for overturning state law on biased-driven propaganda presented by the county sheriffs rather than actual facts and findings that were presented that night, entered into your staff report, and published in the Imperial Beach Patch. Do you not see that you are reinforcing an atmosphere of fear and discrimination within your own constituency? If you take this final vote tonight, you will be attempting to overturn state law and will be in direct violation of it. Undermining the will of California voters has consequences. At the last council meeting on this issue, when patients pled with you not to break the law, you ridiculed them and attempted to alienate them from the political process. You had a large contingency of county sheriffs lined up outside, intimidating every patient that walked through the door. And to top it off, the deputies took out their cameras and began snapping pictures of the patients. Is this how you treat your constituents? That take their time out of their day, of their busy schedules, and come out here and to participate in the democratic process. In the beginning of this process, the council recognized that politics, not facts, were to guide you through this land use issue. And at that time, council members, and you, Mr. Mayor, promised to handle this as a strictly land use issue. In fact, I specifically recall you instructed the staff to keep politics out of the process. You have not kept your promise. You have allowed the bias, reefer madness propaganda to drive your decisions rather than facts and findings. Mayor Janney, the very politics that were to be excluded from this process have taken complete control of it. Even after you have read the proposed ban yourself, you were understandably shocked and appalled when you discovered the ban was so overreaching and intrusive. Councilmember Bragg, I really do appreciate you letting me know at the last meeting where in the process we lost our friendship. By the way, did you hear the sheriff's expert tell you that holistic healers and not doctors are issuing medical marijuana recommendations? Now tell me, how can I apologize for interrupting conversations at the exact time that you are being misled by someone you're placing blind trust in? There are no holistic healers issuing recommendations. In fact, only medical doctors and osteopathic physicians are allowed to recommend cannabis. I've given you in your pack an example of a recommendation issued by the local urgent care doctor in Imperial Beach, and I've let him know that you called him a quack. And Councilmember King, I gotta bring to your attention the fact that you made firm statements supporting safe access for patients during this process to the extent of actually putting a motion on the floor to move forward with an ordinance for safe access. What happened? You seem to have completely changed your position after the closed-door session meetings council had on this issue. By the way, can anybody tell me why the public wasn't notified of those meetings? Don't worry. I know you're not going to answer me. You don't have to. I'll be sure to remind and explain to the voters for you. Councilmember Spriggs, I'm surprised you, of all people, allowed anyone to pollute your thoughts on this issue with misinformation. With your background, you should have responded to the insinuations and generalizations of qualified patients. You are a chancellor at UCSD Medical Center, the very same medical center that right after medical marijuana laws were enacted in California was contracted by the state of California to study only harm-related issues with the use of marijuana as a pharmaceutical. And as you know and can testify with authority to the other council members, no harm was found. In fact, isn't it true that major benefits were found? I believe Dr. Grant's report, specifically on MS spasticity, states that no medication available on the current market for muscle spasticity helps like smoked cannabis. Council, the community at large elected all of you to represent them. This is not the case on this issue. If you vote to approve the ban tonight, you will be doing so against the will of the voters of your own constituents who you purport to represent. Although you may think you are putting this issue to rest tonight, I can assure you by taking these steps, you are guaranteeing that this issue will stay in front and center leading right up to 2012. Dear council members, it is not too late to change course. I urge you to table this vote tonight, give the facts and findings about this land use issue a fair and balanced review. The sick and dying patients deserve at least that from you. Thank you for listening.
Mr. Dennison, are you in the chambers? I had a speaker slip. The gentleman is not here. That concludes the public speaker slips that we have this evening. Do I have any questions, comments from my colleagues before we move forward with what's before us on our agenda package? Mr. Spriggs?
Just for the record, I'm Associate Vice Chancellor in Student Affairs. I'm not associated with the medical school when we left, and don't have any medical background. I did have a question. The reason we're considering the first reading of the zoning ordinance is because of the change of the definition of...
It's right. It's not the zoning ordinance. That one you can do the second
That's
reading.
right. It's the
the business one. When the council voted last time, we made a change in section 4.60.010A1, but it also necessitated a change in A2, so that cultivation's not included in the first part of the definition, and so the cultivation was still essentially 2 or more.
Right.
And so we wanted to make it consistent with council's intent of 4 or more.
Right. That's the point, 4 or more. So I actually had a question for, I guess, our city manager and anyone in law enforcement who's here. And that's, we didn't really have an opportunity to thoroughly examine what the 4 or more would mean in terms of probable actual practice. And essentially, it's an exemption of 3 or less from the ordinance. And so I guess my question is, if we have an exemption of 3 or fewer people from the ordinance, what are the worst case kinds of scenarios that can create for in terms of our intention, at least the intention of the last vote, to effectively not have medical marijuana dispensaries operating within the city limits? In other words, can you operate something akin to a dispensary if you've got, is 3 or less a critical mass for the conduct of activity that we're really trying to avoid?
I don't think it would approach the dispensary patterns that we've seen, throughout the region. You could have 3 or fewer people operating like a cooperative or a collective, probably doing it in a backyard, and I'm not sure if it would be legal, but in effect, I don't think there'd be much of a chance that a formalized business dispensary would be open. I guess you well, and then we could get into combination of zoning. It's likely that somebody may try to have something in their neighborhood, or one person growing in their neighborhood, another two others working on
We're
it.
kind of
but
guessing
that's,
here, Mr.
yeah.
Brown. I mean, from a legal standpoint, I'm not sure if Mr. Spriggs was looking, does it cause a difference when the original draft had 2 and we asked to go to 4 in that number? Does it cause a problem from a legal status, enforcement or something of those standards? I mean, what are we looking at?
I guess when you go from 2 or more to 4 or more, you're really creating an opportunity for people for up to 3 people to be growers, distributors, whatever, and I don't want to put ideas into people's heads, but you can have various triads associated with that. I mean,
And that's
so that's the concern that I have. When you have when the regulation as stated was 2 or more, that essentially limits the activity. I think in the most severe manner, and in a manner that's less likely to have unanticipated side effects and consequences. That's all that I'm saying. I think this is something that if we're going to go ahead with the 3 or less exemption or the 4 or more definition, whichever way you want to look at it, that it's something that we'll have to, pay close attention to, and see how it works. And I think contrary to some of the concerns that are expressed, we said very clearly, I said very clearly at the last council meeting where we discussed this, that the issue is not really legitimate users, whether it was a medical doctor that prescribed it or whatever. It is the abundant testimony that we had regarding abuse by people who are not legitimate medical marijuana, do not have a legitimate medical marijuana need. I don't think, and I think I said specifically that if the situation were evolved to the point where we only had legitimate users or legitimate medical marijuana card carriers in and out of these facilities, that we'd have a completely different view of the situation. It's the secondary business. It's the fact that just we had testimony that just about anybody can get a card, that it's very liberal. The medical marijuana movement and industry has not evolved to the point where it's really primarily, if not exclusively, the medical justification, medically justified people who are having access to it. I'll speak for myself, axe to grind with anyone who really needs it. But we have this huge abuse situation that has been demonstrated in many communities, and why would we expect that Imperial Beach would be immune from that kind of situation if we attempted it here? There's no reason to think that we would be immune for some strange reason from the abuses that have taken place elsewhere. So, I think we just have to be clear what the reasoning is for this. And there's lots of other reasons as well that we went into previously, including the 500 or 600 foot radius from schools and other areas that applies in other communities and in the county, that we really have almost no, if not no, areas where we could have compliance with that in Imperial Beach. So I really, I think that kind of restriction is something that if this were brought forward a year or two from now, and we were looking at it, and the community had evolved to the point where it was only the medical need people who were having access, I'd be prepared to say, okay, well, 500, 400 feet, we don't have to worry about that as much. It's really people in need and only people in need who are having access to these facilities. So that's really all that I have to say about it.
Do we have any other comments? Considering we have a couple action here, Mr. Bilbray.
I'm just going to say a couple words. I'm just going to reiterate my opposition to this again. I don't think it's the responsible thing to do, but something that we all need to think about is that it's not our job to sit up here and say who and who does not need medical marijuana. That's between them and their doctors. Our job is just to say if people in the city actually need this and what the responsible thing for the city to do to avoid extra costs to the city through either litigation or putting it on the ballot. It's going to cost the city more. The responsible thing to do is to either zone for one, or if we're not going to do a dispensary, do what Chula Vista is doing and allow collectives and cooperatives into the city. So that's all I really have to say on that. But again, I will not be voting for this once more.
Mr. Dennison, I see that you showed up. I mean, normally I've called your name twice and you weren't present. Would you like to still speak to this item?
Yes, please, thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, that's bonuses to you guys, bonus. I wore my black shirt tonight because I wanted to use this as my symbol to show that I'm against this ban. This ban is irresponsible. I see it as a breach of public confidence. I expect the people that make decisions for me in my name or for my benefit to weigh things, not emotionally, not, oh, this is what I heard, to actually get in, weigh things, do some research, read some of the research that you get. Don't just take it verbatim from people who have access to it. Listen to what goes on. Say, okay, I checked this out, I did this, I did that. I did due diligence. I know what I'm talking about. Not this sad thing that I hear. Oh, well, we didn't even know what the thing said. I was here last week. We were all shocked about it. I heard you talking about it too, so enough about that. But that kind of represents to me that you guys didn't have all your oars in the water in this thing. You're trying to ram something through. That's my opinion, and, well, I'm talking right now, so I can give that. And the other thing was, when I asked you about the funds, for the next part of the thing, where you guys had all this 7.5 million or something funds for litigation, and I asked you if you were prepared for the funds for the litigation that was going to inevitably come from this, because we're standing up for our rights. And you said, yeah, that was perfectly fine. That's what that was for, pretty much. That's not what you said verbatim, but that's what I got out of that. Now, the meeting before that, I saw a thing about Dog Park. They were trying to get Dog Park. You guys couldn't fund that. You couldn't fund the resources for Dog Park. You couldn't do a study for Dog Park. You had this reason, that reason, and the other reason, but it all came down to money. So now you're trying to ban dispensaries for emotional reasons that have been presented to you. Oh, we're afraid little Johnny's going to do this, that, and the other thing. Say parents who really don't want to be responsible for little Johnny's raising, so they drop that into the city's lap. Oh, I want you to watch out for little Johnny. Screw pardon my French. Don't pay attention to everybody else's rights. It's what I'm afraid is going to happen to little Johnny. So, for instance, that's fear raised. That's the party of no talking. I don't want that to be people who represent me. I want them to be more responsible, to weigh things responsibly, and to think about, oh, this is the United States. We like to keep things free. We want to be responsible for people's rights and responsibilities. We're not going to take over those just because somebody has an emotional basis. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, one more thing. And I urge you to pause, put the ban on the back burner until you can do further research, please. Thank you.
I see no other speaker slips or comments. We have before us is Mr. King. This remote's away.
This is a difficult issue. It's very clear cut to people who would like to see dispensaries operate. I understand. Saying our position is quite as easy. We have a number of people to look to in this community. I want to ask the city
Right. The current state of the law talks about an affirmative defense for those who get together to cooperatively and collectively cultivate and use, possess, distribute marijuana. There's nothing currently in the law that's a mandate to every city to locate a cooperative or collective in your city. There's just nothing currently in the law that's a mandate to cities. And the cases and the law that's out there suggests that cities have the ability to regulate location and establishment of dispensaries, cooperatives, collectives. And they have zoning power. They have, that's one of the fundamental rights of a city council.
Thank you very much. It seems to me in that regard that what this issue really involves, and it involves many people in the state of California gathering together to give rights to people who have medical needs. And it seems that the issue really boils down to availability for medical use and where that availability is to occur. We on this council have looked at it in terms of the size of our city. I personally think that on one regard it would be nice to accommodate it, but on the other regard there are things that have not been worked out, and there are problems that are consistent with a number of dispensaries. And I need to dispel something. I've read most all the material, including what Mr. Boyd has given me, and one of the things that I find to be erroneous in the argument of most of the people who are in favor of it, and I think they don't do themselves a favor, is the continuous reflection on the fact that, what is it called? Oh, the marijuana madness. Recounting that everybody's been fed this marijuana madness thing. And that's an old movie that was done in the 50s. I think that's really an incorrect statement. I think there's valid concerns, and I think that's what I represent. I don't want to see anybody denied access. I appreciate Ms. Bilbray's mentioning that to go out of town is a very difficult disposition, and I can appreciate that. That's why you have a caregiver that can go. On that, I think I'm going to close at this point. But as I said, this is not an easy issue on a community-based level, and that's all.
Thank you. Any further comments on it?
Everybody
Ms.
else
Bragg?
has, I might as well. It's unfair to say that we haven't done our due diligence as council members. We all have. A couple weeks ago, in fact, I called somebody sitting in this audience to get their feeling. How would you feel about a dispensary in your community? We've all done outreach across the board to many members of this community, and as I've always said, when we vote on something, it's because we talk to a lot of people, and our vote reflects what the majority of the people we talk to want us to do. Sometimes I vote on something, maybe it's not the way I personally feel, but based on what the majority of the people have told me, have expressed to me, that's how I place my vote. And we all look at the merits of each issue before we do vote. Thank you.
Moving on, I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt the report and the June 15th, 2011 staff report as the report required pursuant to Government Code Section 25858. Is that the way we
The code section is actually 65858, but yes. That's
65858? So we need that motion first before we go through with the resolutions? Okay, that would be my I'll make that motion then, that we adopt the report and the June 15th, 2011 staff report as the report required pursuant to Government Code Section 65858. I have a motion and a second. Any further comments? Could we please vote?
Motion carried by the following vote. Ayes, Janney, Spriggs, Bragg, King, Noes, Bilbray.
Now, are we adopting resolution 2011-7061? Is that what we're adopting here?
If the council is inclined to adopt, to do the second reading of the zoning ordinance, then this resolution would be necessary to submit the zoning ordinance to Coastal Commission.
So then I would entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2011-7061. We have a motion and a second. Could we please vote?
Motion carried by the following vote. Ayes, Janney, Spriggs, Bragg, King. Noes, Bilbray.
Call for the reading of ordinance. Read the title of ordinance 2011-1119.
Ordinance number 2011-1119, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Imperial Beach, California, adding Chapter 19.61, Medical Marijuana Distribution Facilities, to Title 19, Zoning of the Imperial Beach Municipal Code, and repealing Ordinance 2010-1107.
I'd entertain a motion to waive further reading and adopt ordinance 2011-1119. We have a motion and a second. Could we please vote?
Motion carried by the following vote. Ayes, Janney, Spriggs, Bragg, King. Noes, Bilbray.
Call for the reading of title of ordinance 2011-1118, amended.
Ordinance number 2011-1118, amended, an ordinance of the City Council for the City of Imperial Beach, California, amending Title IV, Business Licensing and Regulation of the Imperial Beach Municipal Code by adding Chapter 4.60, Medical Marijuana Distribution Facilities.
Entertain a motion to dispense the first reading of ordinance 2011-1118, amended, and set the matter for adoption at the next regularly scheduled City Council meeting on the 20th of July, 2011. Have a motion and a second. Could we please vote?
Motion carried by the following vote. Ayes, Janney, Spriggs, Bragg, King. Noes, Bilbray.
Thank you. Moving on to reports.